Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I just did a video yesterday discussing my own philosophy of what isolation movements I'm picking, and I want to read out a quote for you guys that C.J. Allen said in response to the video. And for those of you who remember, C.J. Allen is working on his PhD in biomechanics. He is a strength and conditioning coach. He is an elite level powerlifter with an elite total. He coaches powerlifters. He coaches competitive bodybuilders even during their contest prep. He's coached basketball players at the university level, rugby players, other people. And this is what he said, and I like that because he and I are both turned oftentimes exercise minimalist, or people who focus too much on the basics. And actually Johnny Candido gets thrown in that same category. And he and I had a long talk about that yesterday. But I'm going to read this out. CJ said, "This vid illustrates a point you and I have discussed a lot, and that seems hard for people to grasp. Accessories should be chosen based on specific needs. You have aspects of your physique you need or want to address, and have chosen movements that address those needs in a specific way. This is the part people leave out when they criticize methods emphasizing basics. It's not about eliminating accessories, it's about choosing the right accessories for your needs without wasting time on others you don't need." Excellent vid and explanation. And that is the take-home message with this stuff. And this is something that I tell anyone. Now, obviously, I can write something like my novice program, which tons of you are out there on, and it will work for the majority of novices because it's balanced around the most common weak points in early people's development, early on in their training. And as long as you follow the template, about 70% of people end up with a fairly balanced physique at the end of the year. And then obviously once you reach an intermediate, you got to start custom tailoring your weak points. Different people based upon their genetic structure, their bone structure, muscle insertions, which muscles just grow easier for them, all down to genetics, or even the way that they did movements and things. Different people use different techniques that will emphasize movements differently, even though they all think they're doing the same movement. And then you've got to come in and you've got to balance those things out and say, hey, I've got an obvious glaring weakness here. I can see it in the mirror. I can see it in my performance. It needs more work. Intermediate and advanced lifters have to do a lot of that. Novices don't need to do it because their whole body is weak. Their whole body is small. Everything needs to be hit hard to come up. But as you get more advanced, you've got to balance those things out. It don't matter whether you're a bodybuilder, it doesn't matter whether you're a power lifter, strongman, whatever. You're going to have weak links somewhere that have to be addressed, or you're not going to be at the level that you want to be at. You've got to address those, and that's rather the point, is that you can take any basic template that's well-rounded, that focuses on the big lifts and progressive overload. Doesn't matter whether it's Mad Cows, which is Bill Starr's old 5x5, or 5-3-1, or anything else that focuses on the basics and progression, and any person can then come behind it and pick their accessory movements. Or even if they're a bodybuilder, they want to use it for power building, they could use any of those templates to put on raw size and then come behind it and say, okay, these three specific muscles are not getting stimulated correctly for me. They're starting to lag a little bit in the mirror. I better put some extra focus on those. But when you pick things to put the focus on them, it shouldn't be random. You should never do random isolation movements, because isolation movements are the least efficient use of your time. They just have you throwing away, wasting time in the gym when you could be exercising 3 or 4 or 5 different muscles and getting a lot of growth with that same amount of time that you're playing around with a fluff movement. They should be used when you say, hey, I have something specific I need to work on. I really need to thicken up my brachialis. For some people, their bicep gets really, really big off weighted chin-ups. They don't have to do normal curls. I'm not saying that's everybody, but 1 in 3 guys, they can build 18-inch arms. I've seen 18-inch drug-free arms off guys who don't even isolate their arms. It's just very, very genetically blessed there. And in that case, where that person goes, but my brachialis and radial brachialis is just, it doesn't look good on there. It's lagging. That person can throw in some hammer curls. The same thing. A lot of guys will do a lot of rowing. They'll even do their face pulls. They'll do pressing, and their front delts and their rear delts will get well developed, but that side delt, one guy will get really good side delts off the overhead pressing. A lot of guys won't, and they'll look at it and go, that's just really lagging. I need to come through and address that. Or they address it as soon as they start to see it. It doesn't even get very progressed, and that's what the good eye does, is they're able to assess their physique and very, very quickly, immediately pick out something that's starting to become a weakness before it becomes obvious. But you should always pick those movements based upon that need. You need to specifically assess that. You shouldn't just do random isolation movements, because they're not an efficient use of their time. They don't stimulate very much growth at all. but they're there to fine-tune those weak points, and you should always have a reason for adding them in. Because otherwise, like I said, why aren't you just doing some sort of press for your chest that would bring up your delts and triceps more? I mean, do those not need to grow also? Or something along those lines, why have you selected it? Or if you had 4 different really good isolation movements to select for that muscle group, why did you select the one that you selected? Was it just random because you saw it in the magazine, or did you stop and think it through and say, I'm looking at my body, this is the weak link, this is really where I need to put the work, and that exercise is the best tool that I have available to do it. And if you've logically, and you might be wrong, but at least if you have thought it through and at least thought about it and tried to make an intelligent choice, then you're moving in the right direction. You've made something that seems to be reasonable and intelligent choice, and you go bust your ass with it and put your efforts into it. It's probably going to work. But if you're just picking random stuff, you could end up wasting a lot of efforts and not getting the best results that you could possibly want. And that's what I tell people. Hard work can go a very, very long way, but if you apply that hard work intelligently, you're going to reach your goals faster and more effectively. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.